Hey guys, so I realize it's been a while since I've made another video, and one of the things I've been wanting to do is put together a step-by-step tutorial on how to assemble the larger armatures, because people have been asking about wanting to order these in pieces so that they can assemble them themselves. And I'm going to assemble it twice. The first time I'm just going to assemble it without talking. So if you just want to watch and you feel like you can pick up most of it by just watching, then great. And then I'm going to do it again step by step and talk through some of the considerations and things you have to keep in mind as you're assembling. So the first step is just going to be just me building this, and you can just watch. Pay attention to the order as well. And I am done. So obviously I've got quite a bit of practice doing these. I've done a lot. And so now I'm going to go through that again and do it step by step and speak about some of the things you want to be careful about and some things that you need to be observant about as you're putting these together. The first thing I started was with the torso because that requires the most amount of force applied to it. And I also need nothing to be over the top and below it in order to apply pressure from both sides using this vice grip. So what I do is I grab one of the legs and I use that as sort of like a key to put right in the neck slot so that I don't end up crushing that part of the torso. So, and the peanut joint, which goes inside of it, the thing to remember here is that in the case of the neck peanut joint and the pelvis peanut joint, the very smooth side faces downward. The more rough sides face upward. So I'll go ahead and apply my key, use the leg as a key, and I'll put this in there. And I put this inside of the vise and I spin it. If you don't have a vise, I have had some success using a big heavy hammer and on a firm, maybe like on the corner of a table, by simply hammering it this way. But I do not recommend doing that because you could easily hurt yourself, and it does require quite a bit of pressure. You'd have to be really good at hammering in order to be able to pull that off or have a lot of practice. So I recommend using a vise. It makes it really simple. I put the key, use the leg as a key, put the torso in there, get the peanut joint, make it just open enough to fit this in, and start to squeeze, holding onto that torso and trying to make sure that that peanut is going in straight. It's going to have a tendency to bend on you, and that's okay as long as you get it all the way in there. Now, once it's gone inside, it's going to be too tight, and so you'll want to grab some pliers and get a firm hold on one end of it, and slowly start to move it until it starts to give and wear some of that interior. You don't want to push too hard, but just enough, and then as it starts to loosen up, then try to have it kind of do the circular movement. You want your torso to be able to move freely when you're posing it, but not too loose that it becomes too worn out. It's got to be loose enough that you can move it with your hand. And it's fitting much better than it has in the past. Now it's actually firm in there. Then the pelvis, you noticed when I did it the first time, sometimes you can push these in together. It looks like I'll be able to do that with this one. And sometimes I put this on the table like this as a key, and I just hammer that pelvis in. And it goes right in there. And then, and sometimes it comes off and you just push it back in. This one seems to be a pretty nice fit. But sometimes yours might be extra tight, and so you'll want to bend it back and forward, to loosen it up a little bit. There it is. So then I move on to the legs at that point. I grab the femur and tibia joints, and the rough side faces inward into the body. And so I put these down on the table, and I hammer this knee joint into one or the other, like that. And then put this over the other joint and hammer it in that one. Now you want this to go in completely, but it's come to a stop because it hit the table on the other end. So at this point I pick it up and I use the pliers to put pressure on one side while making sure that this other side is not covering the hole so that it can come through. You just push it through all the way. And then I make sure to grab the knee joint here and turn it until it's loose enough. Some of these come out really tight, and so often I find myself having to artificially wear it down a little bit so that when you turn the knee, it doesn't bend the joint itself. You want to be able to rotate these with your fingers. Once you can do that, you don't have to use this anymore. The shoe is simply a matter of kind of working your way around it until it fits in. And then the hip joint, you want to put in at an angle like this and kind of plop it in. But often you have to kind of go back and forward and let it wear down a little bit so that it allows you to fit it in. At this point, because it's brand new, I want to exercise it a little bit and have the leg move all the way up to its chest. And I want to do this slowly. You'll hear some cracking sounds. That's because the plastic is starting to give to the pressure. And so I want to work it up slowly until it makes it all the way up, and then work it all the way back. And now I know the leg is ready. Got a knee joint, hammered again into the tibia, bring the femur under it, and then hammer that one in there. Finally, get that joint to pop all the way through and exercise it a little bit. Finally, the other shoe. And then get that femur all the way into the pelvis and exercise it a little bit. I'm going to rotate it all the way up and all the way back. And then I move on to the neck and inserting it into the skull. And so remember, the smooth part faces down the body. So when I put the head upside down, it's got a flat part on the top. I want the smooth side facing up because now the head is upside down. And I just hammer it in. And I grab the pliers and just make sure that it can move in there just a little bit. You don't want to put too much pressure. Finally, I just pop this into the torso. This is one of the most fragile parts of the armature, this little part here. And so as you're fitting this in, just kind of be careful about it. It should pop in, but I tend to put it in sort of at an angle and then rotate it inward. And all we have left now are the arms. That was really the hardest part. With the arms, you've got these really interesting H joints. And what's important to know is that the big openings face away from the body. So this is the elbow joint, and this is the wrist joint. And their orientation is consistent. Small slot up toward the shoulder, big slot facing away toward the hand. So this is the humerus bone, and that goes into that little slot. You just have to use pressure and the strength of your fingers to fit it in there. And once it snaps in, this is really important. You want to exercise it so that when you start posing your character, it's not too stiff. So what I do is I hold on to that top of the humerus bone and twist this back and forward, and literally you're breaking into it so that it rotates freely. Then finally the forearm, or the ulna, and this has these little indentations which pop right in there and they pivot nicely. So I'm going to get it in first, and then I push until it snaps, and then I can rotate the forearm freely. And then I basically repeat the exact same thing with the wrist and the hand. Now the hand can be tough to fit all the way in there because it's so small. So often what I do is I get fitted in there, and then I put my fingers over the top and bottom of it, and I just push into the table until it snaps in. And I snap that into the clavicle, and I fit that into the torso. The clavicle has been much improved. It has this subtle curve on it that allows the arms to rotate freely without actually falling off. And it works much better now. You can almost pose the entire arm while it's still on the body. In the past, I would take the arm off and pose it carefully because the pieces would fall off really easily. But now it's robust enough to just pose right on the body. Well, step and repeat for the other arm. Now, don't get too frustrated if it's not as easy to do as it is. If it's not as easy for you to do as it is for me. I've done literally hundreds of these already, so I've gotten pretty fast at it. And I've developed some pretty good calluses. So it may be a little painful, being that it's your first time. But that's the finished armature. Now, the one last thing you want to keep in mind is if you've already ordered a platform, and now you're ordering this separately, you'll want to make sure that the blades actually fit. And sometimes, they don't fit perfectly. I'm going to test this one out. This one actually, one of the blades is fitting, but the other one isn't. It seems slightly too large, and so what I'll do is I'll grab an X-Acto blade and just shave a little bit off of the blade. Yeah, there it goes. Yeah. Whoa. One of the things you can do if you're trying to do a really extreme pose, especially if you're pushing toward the narrowest side of the platform, is you can put a little weight on it to hold it in place. But then you just want to have some fun with it and test your armature. As you can see, it seems to be working pretty well, and it's ready to play with. But again, just remember, this is a tool and not a toy. And it takes patience to pose the character. Sometimes I've spent, 5 to 10 minutes just working on a single pose, trying to get it just right. So make sure that you're patient, that you take time with it. And if you have any questions, let me know. Hopefully that gave you a good overview of what you need to do in order to assemble the pieces together, because these are going to be available on our website, Armature9.com, in the UAssemble price range. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope you'll consider ordering these and let us know if you have any questions, or we'd love to see some of the cool poses you've done, or even sculptures that you've produced with the armature. So send us a shout. Thanks, guys. Bye.